Bagua, or 8 trigrams palm, with its characteristic circle walking, twists and turns, is a relatively new martial art, at least in terms of public exposure. It was made public by Dong Haichuan, who showed up in Beijing in 1864 and worked as a servant in the household of Prince Su, and stunned people with his martial arts skills. He supposedly learned the style from a Taoist in the mountains. There's always a mystical Taoist in these stories. But anyway, it is true that Dong never divulged the real identity of his teacher or teachers, and even told different versions of the story to different students. Dong's style was extensive. He had 8 animal styles within his overall bagua system, and he taught different animals to different students. For example, most bagua that you will see today is the Cheng style, which traces its lineage back to Dong's student Cheng Tinghua, whom Dong taught the dragon style of bagua. But there was one man to whom Dong taught everything he knew, and that man was Dong's first disciple, Yin Fu.
师父在上，受弟子引服一拜。
And this is his story. Yin Fu was born in Hebei province, China in around 1840 to a farming family. But due to a series of natural disasters in the countryside, his family moved to Beijing. In Beijing, he first learned how to manufacture scissors and then gave up that and started selling pancakes and fried dough twists from a vendor stand on the street. Now, there are 3 different versions of how he met Dong Haichuan. First is that Yin Fu originally didn't know any martial arts. One morning, he got robbed on the street after picking up supplies for his pancake business. He then vowed to learn martial arts to defend himself. He started practicing on his own. Dong Haichuan saw this and admired his determination and asked him to become his disciple.
各位，今日我就暂时先收下尹福，作为我的大弟子。
The second version of the story is that when Yin Fu came to Beijing, he already knew some kung fu, having practiced Mei Hua Quan and Lian Huan Tui. He heard about Dong Haichuan and purposefully located his vendor stand near Prince Su's residence. He was constantly asking people where he could find Dong Haichuan, and eventually Dong heard about this and they met up and Dong agreed to teach him. In the third version, it is similar to the second, but Yin Fu actually challenges Dong Haichuan in the imperial palace and gets beaten up, and then asks to become Dong's disciple.
我若输你，我拜你为师；我若赢你，你东海川拜我为师。
Apparently, Dong initially refused, but then Prince Su walks by, sees what is happening, and tells Dong to teach Yin. Now, at first, Dong doesn't even teach Yin Fu bagua. He instead teaches him the Luohan style of Shaolin Kung Fu, and this is the style that Dong was teaching the guards at Prince Su's mansion. Now, sometime later, Prince Su gives Dong the task of acting as a tax collector in his territories in Inner Mongolia, and Dong takes Yin Fu with him on the trip. It seems the two are gone for some time, maybe even several years. And at this time, apart from collecting taxes, all the two did was practice Kung Fu morning, noon, and night. And sometime on this trip, Dong decides that Yin is ready to learn his secret style, bagua. When the two get back to Beijing, after what some say was maybe even 8 or 10 years, Yin Fu is good enough at bagua that he starts taking students of his own. And Dong Haichuan also starts taking a few more students of his own, including Yin Fu's cousin, who Yin introduced to Dong. Now, sometime after the two came back from Inner Mongolia, Yin Fu and Dong Haichuan have a falling out. Yin Fu's wife died, and in China at that time, the most noble thing to do would be to be loyal to your wife and not remarry. But Yin Fu did not do that. After a while, he met another woman and did get remarried. This offended Dong Haichuan, and the two stopped speaking to each other. After the falling out, and with Dong Haichuan advancing in years, Dong decided to take more students. Since he couldn't spend as much time with them as he did with Yin, he accepted only students who already had a foundation in martial arts. People like Cheng Tinghua, who practiced Chinese wrestling or shuaijiao. And also because of the time constraints, he had many students and he didn't have that many years left in his life, he only taught a portion of the system to each student. Remember, there are 8 animal styles, which are the lion, 狮形, the snake, 蛇形, the bear, 熊形, the dragon, 龙形, the phoenix, 凤形, the rooster, 鸡形, the unicorn, 麟形, and the monkey, or 猴形. Cheng Tinghua learned the dragon style, and that is what Cheng style bagua is today. But Yin Fu had been taught the whole system. However, according to writings by his students, Yin was strongest in one of the animals, and that was the snake form of bagua zhang. The interesting thing about bagua zhang is that each animal has 8 attack methods. So when you add them all together, it makes 64, the same number of hexagrams as there are in the Book of Changes, or Yi Jing.
Gentle fist art. 8 trigrams, 64 palms!
You can also practice one animal style, but use the attack techniques from all the other animals, but still maintain the characteristics of your chosen animal. If you want to see one very noticeable difference between Yin Fu's style and Cheng Tinghua's style, you can just look at the basic palm technique. This is Yin's, and this is Cheng's more open palm. Yin liked using piercing palm techniques and finger strikes to attack vital points on the opponent's body. There are numerous stories of him defeating challengers. One time, a wrestler picked a fight with him in Beijing. Yin grabbed the wrestler's arm using something called iron bracelet skill, concentrating all his energy into his thumb and index finger. He applied bone-crushing force, and the wrestler screamed in pain. In another episode, a monk came to Beijing and was showing off his skill of doing a handstand with one finger. The monk asked Yin Fu what he thought of his skill. Yin replied, "It's good, but sticking your finger into a man is much harder than sticking it into the ground. The ground does not move." The monk got angry, which, okay, he's a Buddhist monk, isn't he supposed to be all about compassion? But he got angry and he grabbed a 3-section staff and attacked. Yin Fu grabbed a stick and defended, evading the monk's attacks and then whacking him on the head with the stick. After several repeats of this, the monk realized it was futile and asked to become Yin Fu's student. He even apparently had a fight with Cheng Tinghua and won by knocking him into a big pot of tea. But this story is unconfirmed and could just be hearsay. Yin Fu ran a bodyguarding and residence guarding business in Beijing. Then after Dong Haichuan moved out of Prince Su's mansion, Yin Fu took over training and supervising Prince Su's guards, and then he worked for the emperor, training security in the Forbidden City. For this reason, Yin's style of bagua zhang is often called Gongting bagua, or palace bagua. But then in 1900, Yin Fu faced the most difficult mission of his life. In late 1899, the Boxer Rebellion, or Yihetuan Yundong, erupted in China. It was an anti-Western, anti-imperialist, and anti-Christian movement initiated by Chinese martial artists. This caused foreign troops of 8 nations to march on Beijing in 1900, and there was chaos in the city. During this time, Yin Fu was part of a mission to get Empress Dowager Cixi and the Emperor Guangxu out of the city. They disguised themselves as peasants and left Beijing with only a small team of elite guards, one of which was Yin Fu. It was a dangerous mission as the country was in chaos, but the Empress and Emperor were safely returned to Beijing a year later, and Yin Fu was rewarded. Yin Fu passed away in 1909. But he is widely regarded as Dong Haichuan's most senior student. His name appears first in the list of disciples on Dong Haichuan's gravestone. Yin Fu studied with Dong for about 10 years longer than any other student, and during that time had constant private instruction. Thus, Yin Fu practiced the 64 palm changes and insisting on teaching that way, while other students of Dong Haichuan learned only the 8 main palms, ba da zhang, to start off with, and then in theory, they would progress to the 64 palm changes, but few did. Yin's system of bagua zhang can be seen as more complete. However, as time went on, later students accepted the simpler ways of the 8 main palms and would also only teach those 8 main palms. Now, there are some different schools of thought about whether what Yin Fu taught was the original bagua or something that he and Dong Haichuan had developed together. I personally think that it was probably the original. Dong's curriculum was probably extensive, since it was something that he claimed was developed by Taoists in the mountains who literally had hours and hours each day to practice. If that is true, then when you start teaching something like that in society to people with jobs and families, how would they have enough time to master so many techniques? Without new input from whoever taught Dong, things tend to get simplified over time. In Beijing at that time, Yin style was called Eastern City Bagua, and Cheng Tinghua's style was called Southern City Bagua, just because of the location of where they taught. The names Yin style and Cheng style didn't emerge until decades later. The Cheng style is now spread more widely, and although with time even Yin's Bagua has become simplified, it may just contain in it more of the legacy of what Dong Haichuan originally taught. Alright guys, that is the video for today. I don't want to offend anyone, since I know many different schools have different opinions on all of this. So have a friendly debate down in the comments. I'd really like to see what you think, especially if you practice Bagua Zhang and you've practiced either Yin school or Cheng Tinghua school. I'd love to hear your comments. Please subscribe if you're new, and if you want to support us, do consider joining as a member for $4.99 a month. Your comments will be highlighted, so we're more likely to answer you if you ask us a question. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.